Okay, I think we're recording.
What? All right. Hi, I'm Amara. I am UU Youth and youth staff at YAP, and I'm having an interview with Reverend Jonathan Joseph. So sorry. Just started off with a J there. Can you please start off with your name, pronouns, location, and church of origin, and your favorite treat?
Mhm. So, hi, Amara. Joseph Santos Lyons, I use he and they pronouns. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and today I live primarily in the Philippines, outside of Metro Manila, in Southeast Asia. And my home church was West Hills Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Portland, Oregon. And then I was a longtime member of the First Unitarian Church of Portland downtown. And my favorite treat, kind of meaning dessert sweet, is ice
Ask
cream.
anything you got, really.
I'm a total ice cream. Uh, you have to be careful with me and ice cream. So
Good
watch
choice.
out.
Well, I'm Mara. I obviously go by she, they, it. It's right there. Um, I like any kind of snack I can get, really. But I really like sweet things. And yeah, I like sweet things and bread. So, so how are we connected?
Well, it turns out I met you and I think some of your family on the same day in Atlanta years and years ago. And I feel like we actually spoke after service in the snack area. Maybe we
Oh,
even talked about our
fitting.
favorite treats 10 years ago when we were both much younger.
I did that with everyone there. It was my contribution to the church. So
Much appreciated. I feel like you had some really cool friends too. There was a whole group of you.
maybe so. So, what are you doing in your current UU life?
My current Unitarian Universalist life is much richer, actually, than probably when you and I first met 10 years ago. I'm now uh, working with the church again in a intentional way with Drum, our People of Color ministry, as their community organizer, community minister, and I serve in some other exciting roles, including I serve on a grant making committee with the Fund for Just Society, looking at how to put our faithful dollars into action for social justice by supporting local organizing efforts for racial and gender and economic justice. And I'm active here in Southeast Asia with Unitarian Universalists across the region from India, Indonesia, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, the Philippines.
So you said that things are different from now, than from then. So what changed? Or why did it change?
With youth and youth ministry, I think one of the biggest changes is the devolution, the kind of uh, the the ending of kind of a continental, even national and district level leadership infrastructure that we once had an incredible ecosystem of young people who knew one another from place to place in a really deep and meaningful way and were able to get an early start on worship and spiritual and faith formation and hone their skills as facilitators and um, trainers and mentors and colleagues for one another. And that community was really robust and somewhat self-perpetuating because young people really passed on kind of knowledge, wisdom, and confidence to the next generation, which is sometimes every 4 or 5 years because we grow up so quickly. So that's one of the biggest changes. I've heard actually that the UUA and our churches may spend even more today on youth ministry than they did 25 years ago. And at the same time, it feels like we're less connected than we once were. Um, I remember when, I would look forward to the youth newsletter called Synapse that came out every couple months. And I heard at one point it had a distribution of over 20,000 youth across the country and Canada and the world. And the the poetry, the artistry, the readings in that newsletter. This is probably before the internet, so it came in the mail. Uh, were just always so interesting. Like people would bring it to youth group, they would share it sometimes in Sunday service, just to hear the voices of young people from other places made me feel less alone in a world that I often found to be somewhat oppressive and difficult. So it gave me some of the foundation to become more of who I wanted to be.
Very interesting. I did not know about that, about the newsletter.
Yeah, there's probably an archive somewhere. It was, yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, today I think we have an incredible group of young leaders, the folks that I've had a chance to meet. And there's probably a broader shared consciousness among the youth community around issues of um, anti-racism, anti-oppression, which I think is um, really powerful. And, I've had the privilege of meeting some young folks who've thought about seminary or thought about a longer kind of more leadership roles in our church as religious professionals, and also working with youth themselves, which I think is one of the most important kind of callings and roles in our church. Um, so yeah, and I know that the combination of the ending of our national and continental youth leadership structures, plus the pandemic, plus you know just sometimes the loss of um, that uh, that wisdom being passed down because there isn't the contact there used to be between young leaders has really, you know, those are
Well, I
real
wouldn't say
challenges that, yeah,
we're still getting some of the stories from Zoom, so it's not all gone.
for sure. No, absolutely. And even just this effort you're making is really important and makes a difference for sure. I'm glad that you're asking these questions and collecting these stories.
Well, thank you. But what is your call to leadership story?
So, leadership story from when I was younger, one that might relate to folks at General Assembly is a GA story. I mean, in the years leading up to the big youth GA that was held in 2004 in Boston, that had, I think, over 500 youth come, there was a
Lot.
real effort to grow a youth program at GA from the years that I graduated around 1990 up until 2014. And I just saw youth at GA, hundreds of them every year, getting the opportunity to organize worship every day, get a chance to lead kind of workshops and make decisions about who to bring in as speakers, had the ability to network with other UU organizations. So being able to extend and connect with the other like minister groups or districts or issue groups and put together such a powerful week of activities and programs. And one of the highlights for me in the years before the big youth GA in 2004 was the work young people did around anti-racism and how they really intentionally were able to co-create space for youth of color and to also often introduce kind of youth-led anti-racism train the trainers at General Assembly. And you could really see young folks walking away from their GA experience really curious and really kind of energized about doing the work back in their home communities. So bringing it to district conferences, bringing it to their church, bringing it to their area. And some of the leaders who I knew during those years have gone on to lead organizations, to run for office, to serve in the ministry. And that's a real contribution to the world that came out of the youth movement at General Assembly.
Hmm. I did not know there was that big of a youth conference. Last year there was only like, well, we got to 100. That was crazy, but or about 100. But I did not know there was that amount of, there was a youth general assembly.
Yeah, it was a big, it was a maybe one of the first times I think that they had, because my first GA was 1990 maybe, and there was also a very small group. There might have been less than 50 of us. Um, and it wasn't always a focus. I mean, GA back in those days was sometimes held at college campuses. It was often very small, 1,000 people. But that, I think, as the adult community grew around GA, because on a lot of levels, it's exciting for adults as much as it is for young people, the youth movement also grew. And when the board of trustees of the UUA decided to make 2004 the youth focus, it was all hands on deck. And it was great. We actually could really use another one of those, kind of given at least my sense of the state of youth ministry. I also serve on the UU Ministers Association Board of Trustees, and we're talking every meeting about, potentially what feels like a crisis in youth ministry where participation and programs have really struggled to a point that if we don't have a vibrant youth program, we're not going to have a vibrant church.
I would agree. But the youth online online thing is kind of going well. So
We need that. Yeah, we need that. And the work you're doing right now, the work I know folks are doing to create resources and to convene and bring folks together. Yeah, I do appreciate kind of and this probably still happens now, but that personal touch, that kind of intentional, proactive outreach that comes from kind of UUA or nationally connected youth leaders. I think those are special treats. It's like a surprise mystery gift when young people reach out to other young people, or in this case, to an old head like me. I think these are the moments that are really important for our faith to really invest in to support more of this direct outreach and organizing.
thank you. What would your youth leader self think of you now? Well, what do you think, obviously?
Think of me?
Hmm.
Honestly, I don't know enough. I don't probably have enough contact with young leaders to get that kind of good feedback,
I
although I
said youth
always welcome it.
you. I meant youth
Hmm?
you. Youth you, like little you,
Oh,
back when you were a
oh,
teenager.
what
Yeah,
did
when
I
you
think of myself when I was younger?
no, what did would teen you think of you currently? You adult you.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's such an interesting question too. And unfortunately, this is gonna have to be my last answer because I'm gonna have to run to another thing. But I'm happy to schedule more time. So gosh, young me thinking about older me. Um, well, I think on one level, I'm still somewhat lost and wandering in the wilderness. But as we know from Lord of the Rings, not all who wander are lost. I think maybe somewhat surprised at how um, much of a journey I've taken in Unitarian Universalism, in that I've become a minister and I've been in the ministry now for nearly 20 years. And maybe somewhat disappointed that my own kids, my three children, who are all youth and young adults, are not as active in the church. And partly that's based on where we've lived and the churches that have been proximate to our family. Um, and, maybe encouraging me to be more outspoken, especially for supporting youth ministry.
Thank you so much for coming here and thank you for answering all my questions.
Anytime, Amara. Thanks for making this space.
Yeah, it was wonderful having you. I hope you
Well,
have a
I'll see you
lovely
again soon. Yeah.